So today we're going to start looking at Shabbat Mincha. I have no idea what page it's on in this book because I never use this book. I'll tell you, for Shabbat Mincha. I always use the Sim Shalom, the weekday Sim Shalom in the Grand Chapel has the Shabbat Mincha in it. And it's a much better book to use because for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is, well, first of all, that book is just much easier to use. Secondly, that weekday Siddur also has the Torah readings in it. So you don't have to have two different books for the service. You just have one book that's got the service and the Torah reading all in one book. So it's a much better Siddur to use. But since that's the one you guys all have is the 213, is the ones you guys all have is the Siddur Sim Shalom for the Lev Shalom. We'll go through it using that book. Page 214. Thank you, Hal, for finding that. Page 214. So let me know when you're there.
In which, not in Lev Shalom.
Lev Shalom.
Huh.
Lev Shalom, page 200.
Okay, I only have, this only has through page 62. I wonder if I have another.
The online version doesn't have the whole Siddur?
No.
Oh, that's a problem. Michael,
Let me see.
what do you have at home for a prayer book? Do you have any prayer books at home at all? I just assume you've got the whole Siddur.
Okay, I have two different Lev Shaloms, and one of them does have Mincha on, as you say, 213.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's really 214.
14.
Yeah, good. Okay. Michael, are you there?
I was trying to download it from the live, the live stream sources.
Yeah.
And because usually I guess I've gone in person if I've gone to Shabbat afternoon. Let me
let me know if you find it. If not, Michael, do you have a physical prayer book at home?
Yeah, I do. It's
What do you have?
this one is, when we're talking about different Nusach, this is Nusach, or do you Nusach Ha'arizal. Tehilat Hashem. Do you want me to hold up?
Oh my God. I had no idea that you were a Chabadnik.
I knew, let's put it this way, when I was in grad school, I met Chabadniks.
All right, well.
But I can look for where the afternoon service is, but I may have to detect where there's differences.
Okay. Right, so the afternoon service for Shabbat, Mincha, and festivals.
Yeah.
Is what you're looking for. Okay. All right. So the Nusach for Shabbat Mincha, is real, like Kabbalat Shabbat and Mariv are unique to those moments, right? As well as Shabbat Mincha. It's a unique melody that you only hear on that occasion. So when you on a Friday night, you would never. A weekday night, you should not ever use, I say never, you should not use the melodies on a weekday night that you use on a Friday night. The same thing is true for Kabbalat Shabbat is Kabbalat Shabbat is a unique service. It just appears that one time, so you can't confuse it with, you confuse a weekday mincha with a Shabbat mincha because the text is very much the same for the most part. You can confuse an evening service, on Friday night with any other weekday evening service because a lot of the text is the same, not all of it. As we looked at the past few weeks, there are differences and additions and subtractions to the Nusach. Did you find it, Michael?
Yes. Yes, I found Mincha l'Shabbat.
Okay, awesome. Right. So it starts with Ashrei. Just like
Yes.
any other weekday, just like any afternoon service, it starts with Ashrei. Right. Now, how many times do we say Ashrei each day? Anybody know?
You mean in the whole day?
Yeah.
Um,
On a regular day, how many times do we say Ashrei? Hal, do you know?
Twice.
Hal says twice.
I think you do it. at the beginning.
I'm gonna say 4 or
Okay, so now we have 2 and we have 4.
and I'm going for either 4 or 6.
4 or 6. Whoa, awesome.
No, it's about
Okay.
12.
All right, so
I happen to like Ashtray.
Hal says we're gonna do 12. Well, I think we should multiply 4 by 6. No. So the
I
answer.
mean, I know about page 21 and
Mhm.
page 78 in the morning. And I imagine
Okay.
for the afternoon service in the
How many-
evening.
Wait, so Michael, in a regular weekday morning service, how many times,
Excellent.
in the weekday morning, how many times do we say Ashrei?
Twice.
Right, okay, good, okay, now, in the afternoon service, we know that Ashrei is beginning the service, so now we're up to 3. Now, how many times do we say Ashrei in an evening service?
That's what I'm trying to, I think once, but maybe I'm creating something that doesn't exist.
So Hal is over here saying the answer is we don't, and that's the
Oh.
right. That's the right answer. So
Okay,
Ashrei, according to the Talmud, and I forget, it's in tractate Brachot, one of the first tractates in the Talmud, which is all about blessings and how services are organized, that we should say Ashrei 3 times a day. And for some reason, and because the evening service, I mentioned this last time, the evening service is in and of itself controversial. Should we even have an evening service, right? Period. Should we even have one? So therefore, the Ashrei is not there because this controversy of whether we should even have that service at all. So we do it twice in the morning and once in the afternoon at midnight. So that's a recitation of Ashrei.
I said 2. I don't remember service too often, so I was just thinking it was once.
Yeah, Hal said 2. All right, so none of you got that correct, but that's okay. Now we're gonna have to go to the lightning round.
I want my bagel.
Yeah, no bagels and tuna for anybody today. Okay, not yet. All right, so Ashrei begins every mincha service, whether it's mincha on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shabbat, Sunday through Thursday. Right, that's through Friday actually. Every mincha service begins with Ashrei. All right, excellent. Now, so because the Nusach for Shabbat is for Shabbat Mincha, as I mentioned before, is unique to Shabbat Mincha, and there's a couple of versions of it, but it's all based on the same. It's all based on the same prayer mode. So one of the versions is now. I don't know if any of you, probably all of you, are old enough to remember. There was a breakfast cereal that was, this is way back when, it was a breakfast cereal, and I forget what it's called now, that used to be shaped like little animals. And the melody was, the one and only cereal that's made in the shape of animals. Remember that?
No.
No? Okay, do you? Okay, good. Well, so this mnemonic won't work. All right, but that's good. But that's the basic Nusach for Shabbat Mincha. Right, so that's it. So repeat after me. We'll do yai die 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 on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yai die 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 die. Right, so you do Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yehallelu Sela. Okay, good. So that's these are your essential basic Nusach for Shabbat Mincha, and that's the only time this should ever be done. Now, There's a little bit slightly more florid version of it, which goes like this. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha. So the opening goes up a little bit higher, but then the closing part, when we talked about the fact that Nusach has a beginning and definitely a beginning and an end, sometimes a pre-closing melody. So you have da 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 da, but the closing melody is da 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 da. So that's going to be your closing melody for the prayers in Shabbat Mincha. So now some people will do Ashrei responsibly. Ashrei Ashrei Beitecha Odi Hallelu Chasela. Congregation does Ashrei Amshkachalo Ashrei Amshalai Eloha Tehillah David Arim Chalo Hayamelech V'Vachashim Chalilam Va'ed. Back and forth, leader and congregant, leader and congregant, leader and congregant.
Hey, Dan, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why, in this particular place, do we actually chant Tehillah David?
So I guys probably can't hear Hal. As asking the question of why do we chant? Can you hear, Michael?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Okay, I'm not sure. So the question was, why do we chant Tehillah David? So let's back up a little bit. Let's think about what you hear on Shabbat morning. Ashrei Ashrei Veitecha Odi Hallelu Chasela Ashrei Am Shechachalo Ashrei Am Shadonai Eloha Tehillah LeDavid. It's also chanted there.
Yeah, but why?
But why? Good question.
Because normally, most of the time, we're not chanting.
Okay. So this is a good question. So Hal's asking the question. So he's not asking why at Shabbat Mincha we do this. He's asking why in general do we say Tehillah LeDavid. All right. Now, so this begs the question of what is Ashrei. Okay. So for that, this book is not going to be helpful. But it says anything here. Yes. Okay, great. So here's the answer. The answer is when Psalms are recited. So, if you look at the book of Psalms, many of them, or many sections within the book of Psalms, have instructions or introductions of some kind. So, for instance, they're called Mizmor LeDavid, or Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit LeDavid, or Mizmor Shir Al Hagitit, right? Something like that. Many of them are called Tehillah LeDavid, right? And that will be an introduction to the beginning of the song. So the question, so therefore, why does it make sense to have the Tehillah LeDavid said out loud at that point? Any guesses? As I said, the Tehillah LeDavid would be an introduction to the song. Like
it's like citing your source, but what I guess the big question is, why would we do it at Ashrei and not, for every song? I mean, like, I know the book shows that.
Stop thinking, Michael. So stop. You're on the right track, right? You're on the right track. Logically, we just said that the beginning of the psalm, before we begin the song, we start with some kind of clarification, some kind of introduction. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai, Adonai, whatever the whatever the appellate of Mizmor Shir Liftei Korach, whatever it is, right? We always do that at the beginning of the song. So therefore, logically, what would that mean about the first two lines?
Oh, but that the first two lines are actually not part of the psalm?
Exactly right. They're part of a different psalm.
Oh, okay.
First two lines are part of a different psalm. Psalm 145 starts with Aro Mimcha Elohai HaMelech. That's where Psalm 145 starts. The first two lines are not from that psalm. This book doesn't help you there because it should tell you where it comes from, and I forget exactly which psalm it comes from, but it's actually not part of the psalm. So that answers Hal's question of why do we say Tehillah David there. We're doing what we do at the beginning of almost every psalm, which is to announce where it's coming from. Yeah, and Tehillah David or Mizmor David or Mizmor Shir or these all kinds of things. It's not clear what those things were, what these things mean. One of the theories is that these were, so first of all, how many psalms are there in the Jewish tradition? Let's be clear about that. How many psalms are there?
151.
150.
150, I mean.
Yeah.
The Catholics bring it up to 151.
Yeah, the Catholics have 151. They take one of the psalms and divide it.
Oh.
Right, so it's 150 psalms, right? Now, in the ancient temple in Jerusalem, which was actually at 385 Ward Street, but it just, they moved it here, right? The ancient temple in Jerusalem. How many steps were there from the location of where the masses would gather to where the sacrifices would be offered?
I thought it was a ramp, not steps. I thought it was a ramp, not steps.
There was a ramp on one side, but there were levels. There were levels also. Like platforms, not quite. They weren't like step. They weren't like the steps of the Statue of Liberty. They were like longer steps, but steps. How many were there?
No idea.
Okay, the answer is
150, but
150. The answer is 15.
oh, 15.
15, right? So, and this is going to connect to something like pretty cool, right? So there are 15, and the Levites would every day when the sacrifices were brought, the Levites would chant 10 psalms on each of the levels until they got to the top level, which is where the sacrifices were brought. Now, so someone would be like the leader of the Levites, the conductor, and he would say Mizmor David, or Tehillah David, or Mizmor Shir al Hagitit, or whatever that happened to be. That was instructions to the choir. What mode are we singing in? We don't know what these modes were, but the various psalms and various cycles of the psalms were chanted in different modes. And so the instructor would say, like if you're talking about, let's say, classical, like regular music, you say C minor, or F sharp or something like that, whatever it happened to be. So that was an instruction. It was an instruction to the Levites to know which prayer modes that they're singing in each of the different steps. So these are instructions for the Levites. Now, what I said is going to be really cool connection. So think about this. Close your eyes and envision your Passover Seder, right? And look at that. If you guys have guys have that, the Rabbi Goldberg, Haggadah that they used to give away free, and they still do in all the synagogues, right? And you picture that page, right? How many steps are there in the Seder?
15.
10, aren't there 10?
There are 14.
Oh, there's 14? Oh.
Why are there 14? Because the one that's chasal, the one that's chaser that's missing is, since we're not in Jerusalem, b'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. That's the 15th step. So
I'm sorry, that's the what?
That would be the 15th step by singing b'shana haba, because since it mimics the 15 steps of it mimics it up until the fact that since we're not actually bringing a sacrifice in Jerusalem, we can't do 15 steps. So we do 14 with the prayer that next year in Jerusalem we'll be able to finish it up. Pretty cool, huh? Isn't Nusach the most fabulous stuff? Yeah. I learned something interesting last week in my biblical Hebrew class, because we talked about Aramaic as well. So there's the religious leader of in Islam is called an Ayatollah, right? Right. So the root of Ayatollah is from the same Arabic root as the root for ale in Hebrew. So it's a connection. The Ayatollah is like the representative of God, the same way that the Pope is a representative of God. Right? We don't have in Judaism, we don't have that. Obviously, we all represent ourselves. The closest we have is the Chazan, right? But we don't have people who intercede for us, between us and God. Whereas in Islam and in the Christianity, they have that. It's the same root, though. Anyway, so cool. All right, so there's your basic melody for Shabbat Mincha. So then you have in the book I'm looking at, page 213, you have Uval Tzion Goel. 216. Yeah. So now the question is, if you look at this part of the service, Michael, what does this remind you of? Or when do we have this part of the service on a different day?
Okay. I had to, since I'm not. Are we saying the part that begins by Yehi Bin Soa?
No, that's the Torah service. We haven't got there yet.
Okay, so we haven't gotten there yet, because I'm just in a different book and I wasn't successful.
Okay, so it comes after Ashrei.
Okay.
The next thing comes after Ashrei is Uvalti and Goel. Judith, do you know that where we have that this text on a different place?
I've completely lost the text at this point.
Oh.
I mean, actually,
Okay, Uval. Oh, are you? Dan, I found the end of Ashrei, and because in this one they don't make paragraphs as nicely in the prayer books we use. But I have Uval Tzion Goel.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Shabbat.
Yeah, exactly. Do you recognize this text? Look at this text. We have this V'yatzina Kadosh Kadosh Kadosh, V'tiseini Ruach, V'kavod Adonai, Adonai Elohai, right? Right, up until the Torah service. It should be familiar to you.
So is it like the Kedusha?
Oh, yes and no. Yes and no. So if you look at the end of a weekday morning service. After I'm sorry, during when we have the Tachanun.
Okay.
This is the text we have during Tachanun.
Oh.
In morning service, exactly the same text.
Oh, okay.
But what are we saying here? So the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and to those of the house of Jacob who turn away from sin. And this is really significant to have as part of the Shabbat Mincha service. It's significant because it's the idea that that by observing Shabbat, you help to bring the Mashiach. And I think it was Schneerson, might have been someone else, but it was but who said that if every Jewish person would celebrate Shabbat 3 Shabbatot in a row, then the Messiah will come. What do you think about that? Get everybody on board. Start tweeting to your friends. The Messiah is going to come. Just celebrate Shabbat 3 weeks in a row, and the Messiah will be here, right? So Uval Tzion Goel is going to be a redeemer who's going to come and bring us home, right? Anyway, so we have this little section which is actually, it's a section of wishing and praying for, for the Messiah to come. It's also a little section that we find at the end of the prayers of penitence that we have on a daily basis. Right. Okay. So, and again, anything that's chanted out loud at this part of the service, it's following that that Nusach that we just did. Okay. Right now, so now we come to the most interesting prayer, I think, in the entire liturgy, which is the Chatzi Kaddish. So when we talk about all the different melodic nuschaot or nusachim, depending on how you understand the word nusach, that we have all these different possibilities for it. Right? Now, so here's what you do with this Chatzi Kaddish. You chant it in the nusach. Yitkadav yitkadash shemei rabah v'yamadi v'akirutei v'likmachutei v'chayichon v'mechon v'chayichon beit Yisrael v'galav izman kariv v'ru amen. Right. So you're chanting that in that nusach, right? So that this Chatzi Kaddish before the Torah service is chanted in the Nusach of Shabbat Mincha. That melody. Okay, now, what's unique about the afternoon service on Shabbat is that, it's the only time that you, really, it's the only time that you have a Torah service, except for like Shabbat, Yom Kippur. I'm sorry, Mincha Yom Kippur with this Torah reading. Okay, so we have this Torah reading. So now we have the Torah service, and now we get to the melody of how do you chant the Torah service, right? What do you do? What do you do with this one? Any thoughts? Any suggestions? What you do? Vayihi Zoharon Vayomer Moshe.
See, that would signal it's a Saturday morning, right?
It is a Saturday morning, exactly right. Yeah.
So you would need to, would you try to keep doing the Nusach or the melody that you were doing for
you do, yeah. So
other parts, the Kaddish?
There are two options here. One of the options is what Michael just suggested, which is staying within that Nusach. Vayihi ben Zoharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kuman Adonai v'yifutz bebecha, v'yinusam v'sanecha mipanecha. Now, the other option, it's interesting because the Nusach here, the Nusach that we've just been going over, and I think I mentioned this before, that much of our Nusach is predicated on the prayer mode for what we call High Holiday Torah service. Right, you think about the High Holiday Torah reading, Amen, and you have Mapat Pashtan Munach Katon Mechativcha Munach Etata Mechativcha Mecha Sopasu. Right, it sounds familiar, right? The Torah reading for the High Holidays. So you think about that melody, and you think about how that's so close to what we just did. Ashrei Yoshe V'techa Od Yalu Chasela. Ashrei Yoshe, you're right. Tehillah David. It's the same set of melodies. And what you do with the Torah service is that you actually use the melodies of the High Holiday trope cantillation. Amen. Vayihi ben Zoharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai v'yafutzu bebecha, v'yinusam v'sanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, v'adonai Yerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah Yisrael, b'kedushato. Right? It sounds like the High Holiday melody. Now, by the way, where else do you hear this melody used for the Torah service? No one's paying attention.
Be high holidays?
No, no,
And Yom Kippur?
no.
No.
Well, yes, yes, but no. Every Saturday night, every Monday morning, every Thursday morning, every
Oh,
time the Torah is read, every time the Torah is read, the melody for the Torah service is based on what we call the high holiday cantilation. I mentioned this last time also, that what we call the high holiday Torah trope cantillation was for probably close to a millennium, the way Torah was read always. Right. So when we read Torah in melodies other than the high holidays, that's much newer. It's much newer stuff. Right. So that branched out as we Jews wandered further and further away from our physical roots of Eretz Yisrael, we picked up musical traditions that were connected to the, using the term loosely, the host countries. And so much of our cantillation melodies were influenced by the melodies of the countries in which we were living. So that's why the melodies that Ashkenazic Jews use is very different from the music that the melodies that Ethiopians use. Is different from Jews from the Balkans, the Sephardic traditions, because those melodies cross the, they commingled kind of, so we kind of lost the root of what they really sounded like. So really, the melody for the Shabbat Mincha and for Monday morning and Thursday morning, and even for Rosh Chodesh, is really based on the high holiday Nusach. Right? High holiday trope. Right. So you'll hear that, right? So the Chatzi Kaddish is based on that melody. The Torah service is based on that melody. And there are lovely composed tunes that are based in that Nusach. Like when you get to the Vayihi ben Soah, Vayihi ben Soah Haron, Vayom Moshe, Kuma Adonai ve'avu tzuvecha. Or there's like this, like I said, these composed melodies. How does it go? Ani tefilati lecha Adonai ratzon Elohim berov chastecha aveni be'emet ishecha. Right, that's the pre-Torah. Right, so then we have the Torah service, right? And the calling up of the people to the Torah is the same as you would hear on weekdays, because it's all based on the same Nusach. Right. Right, so you use that same melody. This doesn't sound any different than any other weekday, any Monday morning, Thursday morning. And then we get the Torah reading. All right, so here's the other question. So why is the Torah read at Shabbos and Mincha?
I don't know if this makes sense, but to me, I always think of it as like coming attractions.
Yes, exactly right. So we should definitely have we should have junior mints and popcorn.
But I guess it's because we're getting ready to start the new week and we've already read the Torah portion for the previous, for the week that's been happening at Shacharit on Shabbat. And so this is sort of continuing it forward.
Yeah,
because Monday and Thursday also you read from the next Shabbat portion.
Yeah, exactly. So you do the same thing at Shabbos Mincha and Monday and Thursday. It's the same reading. That's we can talk about that in a minute. But why? So why Monday and Thursday?
Because they were market days, and
right.
People came. They could get a minyan easily.
Right. So exactly right. It's like Tuesday at Cold Spring Park. We should just bring a Torah down there, right? That's at the farmer's market. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But so the rabbis were pragmatic about this. They said, well, first of all, there's a tradition that you never go 3 days without hearing Torah. And so, first of all, why should you not go 3 days without hearing Torah? What's the 3 days based on? Okay.
How long we remember something.
I hope you guys are taking notes. Well, you can just go to the 20 hours, 20 hours of recorded class from 2 weeks ago. So the people leave Israel. I'm sorry, what was I saying? People leave Egypt and they go 3 days in the desert and they say, oh, it was so much better in Egypt. We had the onions and like we had in Kiddush, the Shabbat, we had the onions and the cucumbers and the leeks and the garlic, and we have no water. Let's go back. Especially we have no water, let's go back. So the rabbis say that the Torah is mayim chayim. The Torah is like living water, water for living. So therefore, one cannot live 3 days without water. One cannot live 3 days without Torah. So Torah has to be read. You don't go 3 days without hearing Torah. Now, being pragmatic as well, they said, well, Monday morning, Mondays people are going to be coming from the hinterlands to sell their wares or buy their wares. Thursday, people are going to do the same thing. When is the other time that people are already in town? Shabbat. They're already there, right? So no one's leaving, right? So therefore, we start the cycle Shabbat at Shabbat Mincha because people are still there, right? And the Torah's not the only time. Well, the Torah's not read at night, with the one exception. What's the one exception? When is Torah?
Simchat Torah.
Simchat Torah, right? And why is it okay to read Torah at Simchat Torah at night?
That I don't know.
Well, the answer is it's not a holiday. It was made up by the crazy Babylonians, the crazy Jews that came back from Babylonia and said, let's throw away let's throw away the stuff that made Judaism easy. Instead of reading a third of the Parsha every week and let's do the full reading. You're going to read the entire Torah in 1 year. And all the Palestinians and everyone, the people living in Israel going like, what? That means we're going to be in shul like forever. No, this is what we did in Babylonia. We're gonna read the entire Torah, and we're gonna make up a holiday, and we're gonna dance with the Torahs. And people are like, what? What? You guys are nuts. But that became the minhag. That became the minhag. Right. So that's why it's okay to read Torah at night, because it's not really a holiday. There's no Simchat Torah in the Torah. Right. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, we have those chagim, right? We have Purim, right? Made up holiday. Hanukkah, made up holiday, right? But we don't read Torah in any of those. Anyway, so that's why it's okay to read Torah. So we read Torah in the afternoon, Shabbat Mincha, right? And then Monday and Thursday. So those are the 3 times. So this is what the Torah service is included here, and it's the beginning of the coming, as Michael said, the coming attractions. The beginning of the week. I was going to say this. There are different, again, like with everything, there are different minhagim that go with why how the Torah is read at Shabbos Mincha. So mostly, in most places, you're going to find that it's the beginning of the next parsha of Shavuot, the next week's parsha. So. But I know that there's some shuls that that do a different reading of it. So this is what Mishkan Tefillah used to do a long time ago, and I don't know if they still do this or not. But Mishkan Tefillah would read the entire Torah portion, but it took him a week to read it. It took them the full week to read it. Why? On Saturday night, they would read what's the traditional reading for Shabbat Mincha, which is the first aliyah of the coming Torah portion, divided into 3 parts. That's the standard how it's done. But then, unlike other shuls who would do the same reading on Monday and the same reading on Thursday, what Mishkan Tefillah used to do is they would take the second aliyah of the parsha, divide it into 3 readings, and read that on Monday. And then on Thursday, they would take the third aliyah of the parsha, divide that into 3 aliyahs, read that and read that on Thursday. And on Saturday morning, they would start with the 4th aliyah of the parsha and finish it up. Interesting thing, right? Interesting thing.
I've never heard of that before.
Huh?
I've never heard of that
And
before.
I've actually, Mishkan Tefillah did it, and I've actually heard of, I've heard of a few other shows that have followed that model. Because in other words, you don't have, like some of the parshiyot are very long, are very, very long. And so you don't have you don't sit there and have like an hour and 20 minutes of Torah reading. Right? And it's also gives a chance for, people to actually be able to think about the Torah reading, because it's a lot. Anyway, so different traditions. But the tradition is that you read the same thing Saturday night, Monday, and Thursday. And it has to do with now, why would it make sense to read the same thing 3 times? Probably the answer to that would be because you have different people. The people that were in town for Shabbat may not be the people that are there on Monday selling their stuff or buying their stuff. And it might be a whole different group of people on Thursday selling and buying their stuff. So that's why the tradition was to read the same thing each of those days, so that people could hear that part of the Torah, and it made sense. Okay, right. So this is why we have the Torah reading here at Shabbat Mincha, and it's done in the regular Torah drill. Now, notice one thing that you'll see is that after the Torah reading, there's something that's not there that you would think would be there.
You mean after turning the Torah or right after the reading?
Yeah, right after the reading. So you read the first aliyah 1, aliyah 2, aliyah 3. What would normally come after that? Misha Beirach, maybe.
Or would it be a Chatzi Kaddish?
Yeah, Hal
The
says
Chatzi Kaddish.
Chatzi Kaddish, right? Now you notice that there's no Chatzi Kaddish, right? That's an interesting question as to why there's no Chatzi Kaddish at this point in the service.
Well, it's because because there's no coming attraction for the Haftorah reading?
Yes, but that doesn't explain why you do a Chatzi Kaddish on Monday morning, Thursday morning.
Right, on Monday and Thursday, right? You don't have
Yeah.
a mock.
By the way, I know that I have an answer for this, but I don't remember what it is. So next week I'll have to tell you when I check it out in my notes, because I know there's a reason that there's no Chatzi Kaddish here. At Mincha, there's never Chatzi Kaddish at Mincha, but I'm not sure why. Anyway, so then we go on with the next thing that we have is the Torah. Now we have, but we do have a Chatzi Kaddish that precedes the Amidah. So if you have the Lev Shalom, we're on page 222. I have no idea, Michael, what page you're on.
Yeah, I actually found something else. I found I don't know if you know an app called Sefaria or Sefaria.
Safari got everything.
What?
Safari is cool. It's got everything.
Yeah.
If you want to Google Mishnah Brachot, not Babylonian, but Palestine, but the Palestinian version of the Talmud, called Yerushalmi. You can get it with Nikudot, without Nikudot, and with English translation. Safari is like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Yes, an app called Safari.
Yeah, I think I have.
Yeah. You can find everything. I mean, oftentimes there are like little errors and stuff, but it's a really cool app. Actually one of the kids of one of our members was actually one of the people that actually worked on creating it. I forget who it was. Might have been one of the Lifer kids. I'm not sure. Anyway, which wouldn't surprise us. Anyway, so we have this. So we have a Chatzi Kaddish. So now, the first Chatzi Kaddish that we had was in the Nusach of Shabbat Mincha. Now, what do we do with this Chatzi Kaddish? What's the melody here? Chatzi Kaddish is a really interesting thing.
That's a
It's
good
gonna
question.
determine what you're doing.
That's a good question. So
That's a good
Chatzi
question.
Kaddish always has, a lot of times have different melodies.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Where we are.
Hal is saying the Chatzi Kaddish always has a different melody. The different melody is the I can't think of what it is, the identifier of the Nusach, of where you are in the service. Right. So here's what it's going to be. The way that you can tell what the Chatzi Kaddish is going to sound like is going to depend on the Kedusha that you're going to say. So if you turn ahead to the Kedusha for Shabbat Mincha, look on page 225 in this book. All right, so look at that Kedusha. Did you find it? Or Michael, what have you?
Yeah, I found it in,
Okay.
yeah.
So what does this Kedusha look like? Does it look like a festival, a Shabbat, a weekday?
Not like a weekday.
Nusach?
Yeah, it looks like a week. I mean, it looks short, shorter.
The answer, yes, the answer is, this is a weekday Kedusha. Okay, so this Kedusha, this is a good rule of thumb. Look for the Kedusha, then it's going to tell you what you're doing going backwards. Okay, if you know what the Kedusha is going to be, then you know what the Avot is going to look like. That is the beginning part of the Amidah, which means that that's going to tell you what the Chatzi Kaddish is going to look like before the Amidah. So this is essentially a weekday Amidah. So therefore your Chatzi Kaddish is going to sound like the Chatzi Kaddish that you would do on a weekday. Right. So think about that. That's what you're going to hear on a weekday, because then it goes into Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu. So you start the Amidah on Shabbat Mincha in the weekday Nusach, because you're basically doing a weekday afternoon service. That's what you're doing, right? So therefore, the Amidah itself is going to be the weekday Amidah. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu, right? All of that going to the Kedusha. Now, here's where it changes. So think about this: when you're davening on a festival, or in the high holidays, there's always a switch that the prayer leader will make at Ledor Vador in the Kedusha. So if you look at page 225 in this book, where we are. And so if you're looking at just before they have with the very kashakaka to the more, you love Haranah, the Olam, Elohai Tzion, Ledor Vador, hallelujah. Now, if you're in a weekday, you do either Ledor Vador Nagiga Lecha, or you do Ledor Vador Nagiga Lecha, right? But if in Shabbat, it goes Ledor Vador Nagiga Lecha, the same as Ashrei Ashrei Beitecha, Odi Halanu Chasela. So this is when you come back to the Shabbat Nusach at this point. Come back to the Shabbat Nusach at this point. Now, and then you also have this thing that occurs a few times in the Shabbat Mincha service, which is this melody that goes like this. Da, 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 So you have Ledor Vador Nagiga Lecha Onesesachim Kushacha Nagish Veshivchacha Eloheinu. You've heard that melody before, Shabbat Mincha. Da 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 da. Right? You've all heard that, right?
I've heard it hundreds of times.
Yeah, millions of times. Da 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 da. And it only happens a couple of times during the Shabbat. It's supposed to it happens 7 times during the Shabbat Mincha service. 7 times during the Shabbat. Right? Now, this is the coolest thing ever. Where else does that melody appear? This melody appears like this is like George. This is like almost like George in the Friday night service. except that George has like no existence outside of this, except at that moment in the Friday service. This melody has an existence outside of it that's really prominent, and it's a really interesting, a super interesting moment in our prayer life. The connection about Mincha to something else, and when you hear it, you're going to go, "Oh my God, that's so interesting!" Right? So you have da 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 da. Where is that from? Da, 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 da. You got in your head, Hal?
Is it the holidays?
It's one of the high holiday melodies, but where? Once you say, "Oh my God, it's that prayer! I can't believe it."
Not particle, no, it's not particle.
Oh, say that again louder.
Particle nidra.
Particle nidri, shivi, shivi.
Oh, that's an unfair question.
Huh?
That's different.
No, da 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 da, shichacha Eloheinu, shivi. It's the same melody.
Exactly.
Is it slowed down at Kol Nidre? Because it just sounds.
It sounds different because of the context. But that little melody is part of the Kol Nidre service, right? So then, of course, there's always the chicken and the egg question. Did that melody come from Shabbat Mincha and get inserted somehow into the Kol Nidre melody? Because don't forget, Kol Nidre is actually a relatively new part of the liturgy, right? Whereas in Shabbat Mincha has been around a lot longer. And then the question is, what did Shabbat Mincha sound like? Did Shabbat Mincha sound like that before Kol Nidre, did this affect it, or vice versa? No, really, it's a chicken and an egg question. But given that, thinking about the text of Kol Nidre and the moments that this melody appears in Shabbat Mincha, so what do we actually? What's the message that's being brought here? Really interesting. So here's the question: what is Yom Kippur really all about?
Eating afterwards.
I'm sorry, eating afterwards, right?
Eating.
Aside from that, what is the purpose of Yom Kippur?
Well,
Make us miserable all day.
Yes, you're supposed to afflict our souls. Exactly right.
I mean, we're praying to be sealed, but I mean, I guess it's also like starting a new slate, and it's isn't there the whole thing of the revoking of vows? I don't know if I'm using the right term, but
that's the Kol Nidre prayer is about that.
Yeah. Or are you talking more all of Yom Kippur, not just
a general, a broader theme of Yom Kippur?
I mean, it's forgiveness. It's
it's forgiveness. It's actually big forgiveness. And by the way, once Yom Kippur starts, we're already forgiven. The text tells us that God has already forgiven us. If you look through the Tefillot and you look through the poetry, all that stuff, you'll see that we are, from the moment Kol Nidre ends, we are actually already forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the connection between that and Shabbat Mincha?
We're ending Shabbat, going into the weekday.
But Shabbat Mincha is actually all about forgiveness as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to that text that I mentioned before, Uval Tzion Goel. There will come a redeemer to Israel for the purpose of what? For forgiving us. Because that text is from Tachanun, and Tachanun is a text where we ask for forgiveness. So that melody, that little melody that we have, that we invoke 7 times during the Shabbat Mincha service, and I'll tell you, I'll outline that for you next time, the specific 7 times that you're supposed to use that melody. It's all about a moment of asking for and receiving forgiveness as we move into the new week. So it's real. So some of this melody stuff connects to the text stuff with which when if you hear it and you say, oh, but when you hear it and say, oh, wow, now I know I'm listening to this and I'm hearing this, and it's connecting these two very different. Whoever thought of Shabbat Mincha as being connected to to Kol Nidre? Not too many people, right? but it's there. It's like it's there if you just stop, just stop and listen for it and listen to it, and then connect those messages together. What's really happening. Right. All right, so we'll continue Shabbat Mincha next week, and I'll get you some pages. I forgot to copy some pages of some musical traditions, and then also outline the 7 times that we do the 7 times that we do that very specific, forgiveness, Kol Nidre kind of melody. As part of Shabbat Mincha, we'll talk about the repetition of the Amidah, and how that with the Nusach for that, and some of the composed melodies that are available for that as well.
It's an interesting repetition.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. So this is going to be the other thing we should probably do is we should take apart. Now, I think I've got some charts somewhere I can try to send them to everybody. So I mentioned about the structure of the Amidah, right? That the weekday Amidah has, as we said last week, 19 blessings, right? The Shemona Esrei, which equals 19, right?
It equals 19.
Do the modern math, right? The new math, 18 is equal to 19. So, but the brachot, as I mentioned before, the first 3 blessings, the last 3 blessings of each Amidah are exactly the same. Exactly the same. What happens after the third, before the last 3 is very specific. During on a weekday where we have they're called petitionary. They're divided into different sections, but they're all asking. They're thanking God and asking God for something. And on Shabbat, we don't ask God for anything. So therefore, the petitionary blessings, the 13 middle blessings, disappear. And then there's one blessing that replaces that. And that's called the Kedusha the Sidra, the Kedusha Neyoma, which means the blessing of that particular day. Now, what happens on Shabbat is that since we have 4 Amidas on Shabbat, Friday night, Shabbat morning, Shacharit, Shabbat morning, Nusach, Shabbat Mincha, each one of those 4 blessings take up a different aspect of Shabbat. So on Friday night, it's one aspect of Shabbat, Shabbat Shacharit, a different one, Shabbat Musaf, a different one, Shabbat Mincha, a different one, and they all have different attributes of Shabbat. So we can talk about those 4, and how that connects as well. So it's an interesting structural thing as part of the Nusach. Okay. Yeah, I think I've talked myself out of this. All right, go Red Sox.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.
Have a good night.